Okay, this is the July 2nd core team meeting, and the first item on the agenda is legal issues, licensing, copyright clarity. Florian.
There's slow movement on all of this. We're working through a couple of questions. So, for example, some people have asked us if they can actually assign copyright to their employer, questions like this, and slowly ongoing.
The goal and plan, like, I'm trying to page back in some context. Are we building, like, we were talking about addressing some of the code of questionable origin or where we weren't sure of its license provenance that may have snuck into Rusty. Are we also, and we have built a sort of document telling people, like, here's a place you can reach out with questions if you have doubts. Were we going to try to make a policy or post it around somewhere or something like that? Or, when you say slow movement, I'm not exactly sure, like, on which angle of that and towards what, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. That document we wanted to push out in the next couple of weeks, 1 or 2, after everyone from the working group has read through it and reviewed it, because it's almost done, to make sure that it's actually helpful to reviewers and not like, hey, if you're not looking for that, then so that it actually has a good tone, a helpful one.
Okay. Do you feel like you've kind of got this in hand, so to speak, or would you like to hand off some of the efforts here?
I've got that in hand in the sense of Felix and Josh are really helpful there. So yeah, we've got a group going.
That's great. Okay.
Anything else on that front?
No.
Okay.
On my half of it, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to move on to the licensing of the forums.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Didn't know if that was a separate bullet or the same bullet. So I think we've kind of agreed on some text that basically says, as of this date, we changed the implied license to be that you're licensing it under MIT/Apache 2, same as RFCs and code in the Rust repo, which means you can sort of comment unless otherwise stated, I guess, extract comments and so on. I think the main next step is to actually execute on this, which my plan was to create a thread on each forum. First of all, update the text with some future date, which is probably a week or 2 away or something like that, and then post a notice saying, hey, heads up, the licensing terms will be changing as of this date. And then I guess monitor and answer any questions that arise in the course of that thread. So if anyone has concerns about that plan, let me know.
Just briefly, I think there also is like a welcome post that every new user sees when they sign up. And so you probably would want to link to this on that in some capacity.
Okay.
Talk about that later.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So we'll discuss it off.
Okay, next is white papers.
No movement.
All right, next is the target tier policy.
Can we hold 1 second? So we like have gone through and like hit the white papers like a bunch of times, and we haven't really had any movement on it. And last I can tell, there is this TICV white paper that had action like a year ago. Do we still want to keep checking in on this? Like, I don't know, Florian, if you want to keep owning this or not, but it makes me feel bad that we like hit it every time and there's like nothing. So like maybe we can, shelve it.
It is currently hinging on me, but I would actually like to follow through with that. So let's see.
Okay.
Can you then maybe share like what your plan is for moving it forward?
Yeah, it's hinging on putting it into, like, the draft is done, on putting it into good form and shape.
Is this
The draft is now a year old, and
No,
the people
it's
you were
not. Nick and me went through it last month, 2 months ago.
Yeah, a few months ago now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
more recently than a year, definitely. Like in the last.
Okay, that's cool. I was just
3
looking at the comments, and the ones that I at least had like scanned had said like a year ago. So I think I'm on team like get the TICB like white paper over the finish line would be good, but like long term for ownership of the white papers. Like Florian, were you saying you also want to like long term own that effort, or just own getting that one over the finish line?
I would, I think, not not own the long-term effort on this.
Okay, so maybe for this agenda item, Carol, we can just change it to the TIC-V white paper for Florian. And I think maybe in our issue tracker, we can do maybe a more like long-term and like assign them per company. Because I think tracking them as like this longer issue is not super helping move things forward.
Okay, I will update the agenda later.
I also can, but I just didn't want to edit while you edited because that would be sad.
Yeah, I just made it worse, I think, so I'm gonna undo my edits.
Okay, it's not like urgent,
so,
but
yeah.
I was hoping that we could kind of like, I don't know, fix this section because I feel like we just like fly by it every time.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess
Target tier
before we
policy?
leave that one,
Okay.
we leave that one, if there's anybody who wants to help own the white papers, like let's think about that because we will have to do items for it.
I really think it'd be good if we can like engage people outside of the core team to pursue that and have a liaison watching over it perhaps, but like I'm not sure who those people are. I just think that would be the best, the goal we should shoot for.
Yeah, I think that is good. I think we're like being kind of an unnecessary bottleneck right now. So I'll think on that and maybe check in on it for next time. I'll work with Carol to figure out how to like express it in our task list.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, we should keep going, but I'll just throw out that this seems like something where a public issue tracker may well help by shining some light on what we're thinking about. And we could even do things like, you know, call for help on the Inside Rust blog. Like, hey, we want to do more white papers. Calling all writers.
Yeah, we need to work on that.
It's a little tricky maybe in some of these cases, but
yeah, I think there's also a universe where like maybe a white paper is too formal and we want more like a built with Rust so that the lift for each one is maybe slightly less and then we can get more people to do it. But offline discussion. I like that there's new life in this agenda item.
Target tier policy RFC?
okay, I hassled Josh and we made an appointment. He's going to try and do some prep work before that. So slow movement.
Also,
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I think he mainly plans to go over the existing comments and update the text. And then we were going to like review what was said. But I think we're making some motion on actual targets, but that is sort of the same as what I said last time. Not sure, Pietro, go on.
Yeah, like I forwarded you an email I just received like an hour ago from Arma that we are really close for working tier 1 support for ARC64 Linux.
Great.
So that's making progress and I'm really happy about it.
Me too. Well, one thing I want to say is we do seem to have some perennial confusion around things like, oh, this is in the weeds. I'll text Pietro.
Anything else on target tier policy RFC? Next is rethinking working groups. I see Nico's cursor on the sub bullet point with no text there.
I don't know if I plan to type something, but we had an interesting discussion in the compiler team that impacted around this, and I've been turning it over in my head. We were talking about we've been talking about adding more structure to the team, especially around like areas of the code, which kind of has latent structure now. Like, oh, you know, if you want to edit that file, you should ping so-and-so, they know it pretty well. But, and I was floating this structure that I had floated last time of like team is more permanent and project groups are focused on achieving a specific task as a helpful structure there, and as we looked through it, we weren't sure how helpful it would be. And one of the things that got proposed was instead indexing on sort of the level of activity and organization, where the idea was like we set up the areas of the compiler; those are just there; they just exist, right? But you can kind of categorize them by really ones that don't have a lot of leadership happening right now. Those are what we call notification groups, where you just put your name on and you can get pinged when stuff comes up, but there's no like central organization around it. And then there's like active project groups might be more, okay, there's a lead, but it's sort of new. It may go away. If there's not as much activity, it might drop back down to a notification group. And then teams, like really an established thing that we're trying, it also can go away, but you know, it has the trappings of a team and makes independent decisions and so forth. And I thought that was an interesting angle, because if the primary goal here, which is definitely true for me, or one of the primary goals is to really help people know what's going on and know how to get involved, then like level of activity and amount of organization is perhaps exactly what they're really interested in. And so I've been turning that over. I haven't come to any conclusions, but
I actually just realized, Nico, with you saying that, there's some things I've been thinking about in creating teams in engineering orgs and like companies. I just posted it in the core team channel, but it's this structure around pioneers, settlers, and town planners. Anyways, I would be really curious to see, because again, framing structures around what the expectations of people want, like, I don't know, I think that there might be something interesting here. So now like things I'm thinking about at work and now in West are coming together.
that does sound very related.
Yes, and I didn't actually really think about it that way before. So anyways, I posted it in the core team channel. You might check it out. I also can put it in the agenda, I guess.
Yeah, I opened it now. I opened it in a tab that I can lose amongst all my other tabs.
Yeah, it comes out of this really old blog post called like the last structure you'll need to explain anything, which is like really bold, but like, I don't know, it's interesting.
Any other discussion on working groups?
I guess one question I have is, Nico, for pushing this forward, do we want to try and have a longer form discussion? Because it feels like with the core team, or do you want to keep kind of incubating with like the Lang and compiler teams for now?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think it would be. I feel like we've been iterating for a while, and I would like to do things. So maybe a meeting will help.
All right, we should.
There's definitely been also like just different teams pinging around, like governance team discussing sort of in the abstract, and then taking it to specific instances and trying to apply it and seeing how well it works. And I think that's been helpful, but.
Yeah, maybe another log form like core team meeting, or maybe like a more federated meeting with reps from some of those groups too could be, because I also get the sense that like, let's like do a thing now is maybe where we're at.
One thing I would bring up is that while we're here, and I guess still not to take too much time, but that to me another big element of this that hasn't been much discussed, but is how we can communicate it to people. So like, I should touch base with Aaron, who's been involved in a lot of this, and it's obviously has a lot to do with the web page and so on, in my view. But like, I feel like if we do our job well, especially with this idea of activity, there should be some landing page on the page, like the contribution page or something, that's like clearly showing you here are different ways to get involved and different levels of commitment, right? And
in the OG like information architecture for the website, that was like one of the biggest desires. Like that was one of the things I was like most excited to build, but then we didn't actually have an answer, so we couldn't make the page. So I don't know. I think that there'll be a lot of people who are on.
I wonder if orienting around that might help us a little bit too, is I guess part of my point.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
The next is the macOS ARM target. Jake made a tracking issue. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Any other discussion on that?
Has anyone heard about hardware?
I reached out to some people at Apple, and I'm waiting for response. Pietro was CC'd.
I applied for hardware, did not get hardware, but a friend of mine is on the compiler team Zulip and has been working on getting a bootstrap going for the last couple of days. So
Sweet.
I've seen a lot of
Yay.
comments. It seems like there's been a lot of progress.
Yeah, so like on the infrastructure side, Jake is kind of leading it. Like I mostly don't have the time to lead yet another target myself, so I'm kind of delegating.
Delegated. No, it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, not having to do the actual work is nice.
All right,
Thanks,
anything else? I will let him know. Anything else for the public part of the meeting? All right.